In this video, I'm going to show you how to make one of these. So the first thing in my process is to come up with a design that I like for this candy dispenser. So I've gone through and I have three different ideas here. The first one could be multi-purpose. I could have used it as a pet dispenser for maybe pet treats, or also for candies if I wanted to. I just changed up the little knob, but it's pretty basic looking. So I thought maybe I would go and have a look at something a little bit more complicated, and that ended up just being more complicated for a pet dispenser, pet treat dispenser, so I decided to ignore that one. But my last design, I think, is the best. It harkens back to a retro gumball machine, which I kind of like. I like the idea maybe of adding some color to it, using some different acrylics. Along with, I drew it at approximately the size that I wanted to make it at, which is going to be really helpful when I get into the software and start to actually draw this up. So we'll leave that there for now. Now, I've also taken some time and I've gathered up all of the stuff that I think I'm going to need for this project. So we're going to use some of these pine boards that I bought, nice and flat, which is going to be super helpful for me. I've got some dowels, we've got some acrylic, we've got some red acrylic and some clear acrylic, and we only need a really small section of the red acrylic, so I've got it sort of drawn off here. We've got some glue, measuring tape, all the bits we're going to need. So I've got an O-flute for the acrylic, I've got a small straight bit for the small holes in the acrylic. We're going to use a downward cut end mill for the pine, and then a V-bit to do some of the chamfering that we're going to make. Got some screws, and of course I've got my trusty calipers here to help me make sure I have an accurate sense of the thickness. So now what we're going to do is we're going to jump right into Cut 2D Desktop, and we're going to design this project. Now keep in mind, and I want you to remember this, that I'm designing this for Cut 2D. Although the machine that we're going to be using, I definitely could cut something much bigger, cause myself a little bit more work, but for you, you'll be able to cut it in your desktop version of your software. Let's get in there and get this thing designed up.
This sketch is going to be invaluable for me because I'm going to be able to use it as reference for my final project. Now, this is not by any means the law. I can go ahead and change this as I go, but it was nice to have this. That way I could make sure that my project would fit onto the material that I had on hand, and also gave me a little bit of time to think about how this is all going to work together. Now let's have a look at the way that I intend on building this up. So we're going to start off with a back plate with a dowel hole that's not going to go all the way through the material. That way the dowel won't come out the back. Then we're going to have a middle piece that's going to have the dowel hole all the way through. And this is where we're going to start to see the inside of the candy dispenser taking shape. Now at the bottom of this shape, I'm also going to add a bit of a chamfer to it. That way there's not a shelf for the candies to sit on, and they'll roll down towards the actual exit point. Now the top of this candy dispenser is going to be made with these two arms, and it's going to have a hole in the center so that we can go ahead and put in the mechanism for collecting the candy and distributing it out the bottom, I guess you could say. And then we have the handle that goes on the front. Now all of this will be glued up together, not the moon-shaped part and the handle, but the rest of it will all glued up, along with we'll have to go ahead and create a top and a bottom for this. But this gives you an idea of how the center part of our project is going to be built up. Okay, as you can see, I've got a brand new instance of Cut 2D Desktop up here ready to use. Now, as I said before, because I'm using Cut 2D Desktop, then this is going to be compatible with Cut 2D Pro, vcarve Desktop, vcarve Pro, and Aspire, so any of our core software packages. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is set up a new file. And when I do this, I'm going to have a job set up. Now, in my mind, the way I think about this is I know that this is going to be a multi-sheet project. So when I set up this job, this first sheet that I'm going to create is really going to be my design sheet. So it really doesn't matter the dimensions as long as I can do all of my design that I need to do in that space. So it's going to be a single-sided sheet or a single-sided job. The width is 12 inches, the height is 12 inches, and the thickness, I'm just going to pick a random thickness because, again, this is just my design sheet, about a ½ inch. I'm going to go ahead and choose to zero off my material surface, which in this case doesn't really matter. And I'm going to set my datum to the center for this particular sheet. And we're going to click OK. Now I'm going to go ahead and take a look at my Sheets tab. I'm going to rename this sheet right away Design. And that way I can easily keep track of things. You know, see up here in my Sheets drop-down, I've got one called Design. Now, because this is version 12 of Cut 2D Desktop, I'm going to do most, or at least all that I can do in the 3D view. So I'm going to flip over to the 3D view, and you can see that there is my material laying there. And now I can go ahead and start designing. Before we get started, I'd like to draw your attention to the bottom of the screen here. This is where now only in the 3D view do we have some help that comes along with the tools as you select them and are using them. In this case, you can see that there's some information here about clicking on an object to select it, click again to transform it, and so on. And at the end of this is a question mark. If I hover over that question mark, I get the option to be able to go ahead and launch my internet browser and look at the selected tool in our documentation, or I can go ahead and disable these tips at the very bottom if I want to by just clicking the I here, and now they'll go away. For you more advanced users, you might want to tuck that away until you get into trouble. But for now, we're going to go ahead and just make sure that's always visible for us. Okay, before we get started designing our project, let's have a look at some of the nice new features that we've added to version 12 when it comes to drawing in the 3D view. So to start out with, a lot of these create vector tools now work straight in the 3D view. So the draw circle, the draw ellipse, the draw rectangle, the draw polygon, the draw star, the draw align or polyline tool, the draw arc, and the freehand drawing tool all work straight in our 3D view. And each one of these will have some contextual information down here at the bottom if you need any help as you're moving along. So if we go ahead now and try and draw a circle, so let's choose to draw a circle. And as soon as I move into the 3D view, you'll see that now I can see exactly where my cursor is based on the XY datum that I set up when I set up my job. So there's the center right there, and I can move out. So if I go ahead and draw a circle, so drop left mouse click, and I can draw a circle. And you'll see that I can see exactly what the diameter of that circle is at this point. And if I can lock that into what I need, that's perfect. But if not, I can let go of my mouse button and I can type in the radius that I'd like this circle to be. So in this case, let's say it's going to be a 3-inch radius, and I can press enter when I'm done. Now I can use that field like any other field in my software. I can put formulas in there if I'd like to, or reference different dimensions if I want to. I can also go ahead and grab this handle right here, and I can drag it out to change again the radius of my circle. And if I drag this around, you'll see also I can now see the location of the center of this circle, where it is in reference again to the XY datum that I set up when I initially set up my job. So that's great. Let's press escape to get out of that, and let's delete that. Now let's have a look at the draw rectangle tool. So I'll select that. And again, we'll go right to the center of my job, and I'll hold down my left mouse button and I'll drag out. And as soon as I do, you'll see that I get the width and the height dimensions there for me. And as soon as I let go, I'm automatically sent down to the width dimension. So I can go ahead and type in a width if I'd like to. So I can go 5. I can press tab on my keyboard, and then I can go ahead and change the height to be 5 and press enter. And now I have a square that quickly. Again, when I drag it around, you'll see that the center point location is shown for me. So I can go ahead and just put it there. Doesn't matter where. Also, I can go ahead now and radius the corners right straight in the 3D view by dragging that radius control handle there. And I can type in a number if I like it to be exact, but I'll just go back to 0 for now. Now, if I want to go ahead and change the height of, or the width of my box, I'm going to go ahead and click over here. This may seem counterintuitive, but that's because if I wanted to change the width of my box, I'd actually drag this handle. So when I click that handle, you'll see the width gets updated at the bottom, or gets selected at the bottom, and I can change that to be 6 and press enter. If I want to change the height, again, I'm using this handle right here to adjust the height. So I can click that and I can type in 9 and then press enter. And there we have it. Okay, let's close that down. Now, I really, really recommend that you go ahead and explore the rest of these Create Vector tools in your 3D view and see what great new features we have added in. We've got lots of new help videos for those, so if you want that help, you can just go ahead and go down to our help button at the bottom. So let's delete this out of here and get on to creating our design for our retro candy dispenser. Okay, let's start off with our circle tool. So if I go over here to our Create Vectors section of our Design tab, I'm going to go ahead and select Draw Circle. As soon as I click on that, you're going to see that we have our normal Draw Circle dialog show up here, which is always here for reference for you right now. But we're going to go right into the 3D view and we're going to drop a circle and we're going to drag it out and then I'm going to let go. Now you're going to see that we have an indication of the radius. And in this case, I like to have the radius at 3.5 inches. So I can either drag that out until I hit 3.5, or I can go ahead and let go of my mouse, and I can type in to the field right there that's selected for me, 3.5, and then press enter, and that will give me the proper radius. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to close this down. I'm going to hold down my control key and my shift key, and I'm going to scale this down a little bit. And what I'd like to do is make this new circle just about 2.75 inches in radius. So if I go ahead now and choose this button right there, I can go ahead and change this to be 2.5 and I can press enter on my keyboard. Actually, that should be 2.75. So let's go ahead and select that again. And we're going to go 2.75 and then press enter. That looks much better. And I can go ahead now and press escape on my keyboard. And I have the starting of our top of our candy dispenser. Let's just go ahead and select those. And using our cursor keys, we're just going to nudge that up a little bit higher on our sheet. So next thing we might want to do is go ahead and start to think about the bottom of our candy dispenser. So to do that, we need to go ahead and try to draw a rectangle. So let's select that, and we're just going to draw a rectangle in our 3D view here. And if I want to, I can go ahead and start drawing it from here. And then if I hold down my Alt key, it'll use that as my center, and I can draw it out. So in this case, I'd like this to be just about 4.5 inches square. So you'll see that now I've got this selected at the bottom. I can put 4.5 and press tab. And then I can type in 4.5 and enter. And there we have it, a rectangle or a square that's 4.5 by 4.5. And those numbers are reflected over here in my Draw Rectangle dialog. So I can just press escape and we're done with that. The next bit we're going to need is a circle in the center here so we can create the mechanism that's going to allow us to get candy from the top and dispense it out through the bottom. So again, that's another circle. Let's go back over to our circle tool. And we're just going to snap to the center of this square. You'll see up here, I've got my toggle smart geometry turned on and my toggle smart snap, shoot, that's a mouthful, toggle smart snapping is turned on. So when I do that, the software will find the center point of that box for me. I can start to draw my circle and I can let go of that. Now I like the radius of this to be 1.5. And we're going to go and press enter. And that should make the diameter 3 inches across. And that's perfect. So I can just press escape on my keyboard and we're done with that. We got to add in one more circle, and we're going to use this circle to cut out the moon shape of the top of this circle. And that's where the candies, when they fall from the top of your candy dispenser onto this dispensing circle, that's where they're going to sort of rest in there, so we get the right amount of sweets every time we turn the handle. Now, I'm not a professional designer of sweet dispensing machines, so we're just going to wing this, but and we'll see in the end how well it works out. So let's just go ahead and draw a circle. Now I'm going to hold down my shift key and draw this circle, and I think that probably something around there should be good enough. We're just guessing at this right now. And I'm going to go ahead and move that up into place where I think it probably should go. So for sure, I know that as the sweets come out of here, they need to get by the edge of this. So it definitely needs to be up a little bit higher. Something like that I think is probably good. Yeah. Now, next thing we're going to need to make sure is that whatever dowel size we put in here. And I'm going to use the dowels that I happen to have on hand here. You're going to need to adjust this if you decide to make one of these to fit what you have on hand. But it's around, when I measured it, 0.37 of an inch. So let's grab a circle and we'll snap to the center of this circle. And we'll just draw a line like that. And now I know this is the diameter. So if I put in 0.37, and we're going to divide this by 2, so that way we actually are putting in the radius. If I hit equals, then I can press enter, and that's the right size right there that I need. So we can close that down. I think there's ample space between the center of this and there for us to work. That looks pretty good. Now I'm going to need some other construction vectors here to work with. We need to create something so I can modify these circles so that the sweeps can fall down into this area. And to do that, what I'm simply going to do is just go to my draw a polyline tool, and I'm going to create, I'm going to snap it there, one over here, we'll snap down here, and we'll snap over here, and we'll snap up there, or I can just press tab on my keyboard, and that will go ahead and just finish that off for me. Great. Now I can use that line to do some work a little bit later with, and that'll all make sense in a bit. So now we need to consider what we're going to make for a top and what we're going to make for a base. So let's start off with our base first of all. That's going to be a rectangle. Now I know my material thickness is around 0.7087 of an inch because we work in millimeters over here in the UK. So you're going to need to change the height of this base to match the material that you have, just so you can get an idea of what it looks like when you actually cut this all out and put it together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to draw a rectangle here from the center here. I'll just draw it out like so. We'll center it in a second. And I'm going to let go wherever it is. And we're going to make the width of this is going to be 6 inches, and we'll press tab. And the height of this is going to be that thickness I told you, 0.7087. And then we can press enter. That's great. Let's close this down. And now I'm just going to go ahead and snap this to the center of the base like so. That looks great. Now, because I know this thickness is right, I'm just going to go ahead and hold down my control key while I drag this up to the top. And we're going to position that somewhere around here. That's good for now. And then we are going to go ahead and change the width of this. So again, to change the width, we're going to click over here, and we're going to change the width to be about 4 1/4, and then we'll press enter, and that's what we have. And then we can just go ahead and recenter that like that. That looks pretty good. That overhang, just by fluke, looks pretty nice where it is. Now I'm going to need a handle. So for right now, we're just going to put a placeholder of a little circle on the top. We're going to replace that later with something a bit different. Okay. That looks pretty good. So now we need to create a way to get the candy out of the dispenser once we turn the handle. So we're going to go ahead and quickly draw a polyline shape here, and we'll copy that across the center of our job, or mirror it across, and then we'll select those both, and we'll make sure that we join those together using the right click menu. If we have that, the next thing we need to think about is the top. And so we need to create a little piece that will fit inside the top of our candy dispenser. It's the same kind of drawing method we just used. We're going to draw 1/2 of it with the polyline tool. Then we're going to use the mirror tool and copy it across. And then we're going to go ahead and make sure we join those two parts together. The last bit we're going to do here is we need to create an actual shape so we can cut out the hole in the top of the ring around the top of the candy dispenser. Same process we did a second ago. And then we're going to add in the chamfered dish shape that's in the bottom of our base. Now we could do it like we did before, but in this case, we want it to be a little bit more accurate. So we want to make sure that we reference that this is going to be exactly a 30-degree angle, because we're going to use a 60-degree V-bit to actually profile around this shape so that we have this nice sort of chamfered look about it. So we can go ahead and join those together with some straight lines. There we have it. Now we're going to make sure that we add holes to the front of our acrylic here for screws to hold it on. So to do that, we're going to draw one circle. We're going to move the center of rotation to the center of that larger circle. We're going to copy it 8 times all the way around 360 degrees, and we'll delete out those 2 circles there. Then we'll go ahead and copy one of those so we can add those holes to the bottom of where the red acrylic is going to be. Now that's pretty much all that we need to go ahead and start to create the parts that we're going to cut on our CNC machine. So to do that, the first thing we're going to do is we are going to create some layers here. So we're going to go over to our layers drop down here, and we're going to add in a new layer, and we're going to call it back. We'll press enter, and then we're going to add another layer. We're going to call this middle. And then we're going to add another layer, and we're going to call this front. And then we're going to have one more layer, and this one here is going to be called bits and pieces. And then press enter. And then we're going to choose some colors just so we can make sure that we can see visually where everything is. So we're just going to choose some random colors here that kind of makes sense for what we want. There we go. We can leave that one black for now. I think that'll be great. Perfect. Okay. So now we're going to need to start to think about copying things to different layers. So first of all, let's concentrate on creating the back part of our candy dispenser. So we're going to need this larger circle, and we need this rectangle. So selecting those, we can right click on those and we can say copy to layer back. Okay, and then what we can do is we can just go ahead and hide everything else but that back layer, and we'll take those two pieces and we're going to go ahead and weld those together. And that's perfect. One thing I did forget is that I have the bits and pieces layer selected. So the result of that, put this on the bits and pieces layer. So we need to move that back to where it belongs. So we're going to go back to layer back. Perfect. And then we're going to go make sure we have back selected, and we're going to turn on layer 1. That's our design layer. And I forgot to copy the actual hole here, because on the back part of our candy dispenser, we're going to cut a hole slightly into that so our dowel has a place to fit into on the back. So let's right click on that, and we're going to copy that to layer back. And that should be all that we need just for this back layer. Perfect. Let's go ahead and hide the back layer and show layer 1. And now we're going to need to think about the middle layer, okay, which is going to be this. Shift this, and this, and this. And that should be, oh, and this as well, and this as well. So we're going to go ahead and right click, and we'll copy that to layer number middle. Okay, and let's go ahead and hide the back, and let's go to the middle. Oh, I forgot a piece. Go back to the top. I'm going to need this one right here too, because we need to make sure we still cut the hole for the candy to fall into onto the onto this layer. So that's great. Let's hide this, go back to our middle layer. Okay, so now we need to think about this a little bit. We don't need this one here, or this one here, or this one here. We just need those. That's right. Actually, let's go over to our trim tool. Now we can't use the trim tool in our 3D view, so we're going to have to go back to our 2D view to do that. So we're just going to go and click, clip, and then clip that. That's perfect. We don't need you, or you, and that's great. And we'll close that down. Now, as before, we didn't actually, I forgot to copy this piece right here. And we're going to copy that to layer middle for me. So that was what we needed there. And let's go back and have a peek at that middle layer to make sure that we have everything that we need. That looks great. Now, in the end, what we're going to do is we're going to add a chamfer to the inside of this so that we get a nice sort of angle here with that 60-degree V-bit so that the candies will fall, won't get caught on that little ledge there. But we'll look at that when we get around to doing our tooling. So let's go ahead now and hide the middle, and we'll go back to that layer 1 again. Now we need to create the front set of vectors. So let's hold down our shift key, and we're going to grab all these guys again. In this case, we're going to need a lot more of them. I think that's all of them. We may need to come back and get more, but we'll right click on that and we'll say copy to layer front. And again, let's just go ahead and go to front. Here we go. Okay, and we're still in the 2D view, don't forget, okay? We're going to go ahead and use this, our scissor tool, interactive vector trim tool, to go ahead and get rid of the bits we don't need. And there we have those two arms that we had before, which is perfect, which we saw originally way back in the first of our video here. I'll go back to layer 1 again, and I think that's everything that we need. Now the bits and pieces layer, what we're going to do is we're going to add to that. Let's close this down. We need this circle, this circle, this circle, and we're going to copy that to layer bits and pieces. And let's go to layer bits and pieces. And we are going to take this and we're going to hold down our shift key and we're going to select this circle, and then we're going to use our subtract for that. But before we do that, we need to make sure that this circle is slightly smaller than what we need. So let's just go ahead and hold down our shift key, and we're just going to scale it down just a little bit. Now let's again, the hole that we've created uses that bigger vector. So as long as this is smaller than that, it should rotate in there perfectly. That's great. So now we can do that and this. We'll hold down our shift key and grab both of those. And now we can do our subtract. And we have that. Now we're forgetting one important part of this whole thing is that we don't have the little bow tie handle here at all. So let's go and draw that right quickly. So we're just going to go ahead and hold down our shift key and drag that bigger. Let's go over to our 3D view to do this in there. Make it a little more fun. And then we can go ahead and make a quick little bow tie here for us. That will work perfect. And then let's go ahead and mirror that across. And we'll flip left to right across the center. Grab you and you and you, and we'll weld those together. Okay, then we can fillet those. We need to go over to our 3D view to do that. Just round those over nicely. Looks more like a bow tie. We can close that down, and then we can select those two vectors. And we can just copy those out holding down my control key. And then we can delete this one there. That's great. That's pretty much all that we need besides the top and the base. Now I'm going to go ahead and describe how I made those when we go and look at the file that you're going to receive with this job. But right now we have pretty much all that we need to go ahead and create some more sheets and our toolpaths. So let me show you that file that you're going to get. So here we are in the 3D view of the file that you're going to receive with this project. And you see we have all the vectors that we talked about a minute ago, slightly different, but they're all here. And then there's some extra ones that are included, but we'll look at those in just a second. So if we go over to our 2D view and we zoom out a little bit, you'll see that we have 3 sheets set up here. We have the design sheet, which we created together. And then we have a back and a middle sheet that also includes the bits and pieces. And then we have a front, top, and bottom sheet. So let's go ahead and have a look at the tooling for the back and middle sheet. So we're going to double click on that. Jump over to our toolpaths tab, tile our views so we can see what's going on here. Okay, so you'll see we have some toolpaths already set up. We've got one that uses a V-bit, and then the rest of them all use the same end mill. So we can do some really great tool changing optimization here by only having to do it twice. So that's great. Or adding in one and then changing it once during the cut. So let's preview what we have here. So the first one we have is the chamfer toolpath. Now you know that in Cut 2D we do not have the option to cut a chamfer toolpath. But what I've decided to do is to run a V-bit along a vector using the profile toolpath, and that will create me a chamfer. So in this case, I've gone ahead and I'm going to be cutting down a certain depth with my 60-degree V-bit. And we're going to cut along this line and also around this line right here that's in the top. And you can see that is actually going to create the handle for me in the end. So let's just go ahead and close this down and we'll preview that toolpath. There we have it. Now that's exactly what I want to have happen. Let's have a look at the dowel holes. These are called dowel holes tight. So that's going to be the dowel holes that are going to be in the bow tie handle and in the actual dispenser part here. You'll see that also gone along, and I've filled the ends of these to make it a little bit smoother for the candies to come through there without any trouble. So let's go ahead and take a look at that toolpath preview. We're cutting all the way through our material. Now, the next one is going to be the loose dowel holes. Now, this is important because we want the dowel to turn freely in here. And to achieve that, I've used a negative pocket allowance here. So it's going to make this hole slightly bigger. So if we go ahead and we preview that visible toolpath, you'll see that there's a hole there. Then we have the back hole. Now, again, it's a slightly larger hole, but we're not going to cut all the way through our material. We're only going to cut partial way through. So if we go ahead and preview that visible toolpath, you'll see that we're going to cut through. And the last toolpath is going to be our cutout toolpath with tabs added in there. So again, we're going to cut all the way through our material plus a little bit using that 1/4 inch end mill. And we've got some tabs on there. And if we close that down and we preview that visible toolpath, you'll see what we have in the end for finished parts. That's exactly what I hoped for. And you'll see there's that chamfer right there. That's going to give us that nice little lip so the candies will roll towards the top of this dispenser here. So let's zoom out and let's go ahead and have a look at our other sheet here. And you see we have some other tool paths set up. Now I've gone ahead again and used that same chamfer technique to go ahead and bevel the top or the underside of our top. So this underside will glue into this pocket. And when this is turned over and you glue the handle on the top of this, then you'll have the lid for the top of your dispenser. So again, same idea. This is that chamfer tool path. So we can go ahead and preview that visible tool path. Now, one thing I was worried about with this particular one was that you'll see these straight edges here. So really what I've done when I went to cut these is I actually did this tool path first. And what that will do is it will just decrease the depth of this. So I end up having a nice pocket there at the top. Okay, this next chamfer is going to end up being over here around that base where the candies are going to fall. So let's preview that visible toolpath. That looks great. And I didn't go all the way through the material on this one because I needed some backing there. Okay, and then we have the base pocket. So we need to clear all that material away from the middle of that, all the way down to that base. So that's almost like a vcarve toolpath with a clearance tool added in. And then we're going to add in the alignment pocket. That's where we're going to glue this top into the underside of the top into the top of our lid. So we'll preview that visible toolpath. And I use some fillets on there so that this will end up fitting in properly in the end. And then we're going to go ahead and preview the cutout here. And there we have the end result and all the parts that we're going to need to go ahead and glue up the main body of our retro candy dispenser once we get it all cut out. So let's go ahead and jump over and see how that cut on the CNC machine. Okay, so before I go ahead and cut this all out, I want to make sure that the insert for the lid fits in there properly. And you'll know what I'm talking about because you would have seen me make the file. So I'm going to use the knife. I'm just quickly going to cut off the tabs and then we can pop it out and we can just sort of fit it in there to make sure that everything's going to be all right. And I reckon that looks really good right there. I just need to remove the tabs, so I think we're going to be safe. So now we can go ahead and cut this all out, sand it down, and then we can glue it up and leave it for the night. So now we're ready to dry fit this all together. We got our glue, we got our clamps. So this is how it's going to work. We've got our back, we've got our
middle that goes on top. Then we have our two front pieces that go on the sides. Okay, now this, if we're lucky, should fit in here, and it does. Check that out, perfect. This will go on there. We have the bits for the top, so this fits in there as it should, and that should fit down into there as a top. We'll glue that on the top of it. That'll look pretty snazzy. And then there's the base. Doesn't quite fit on there right now because we'll wait till it's glued up. Now what we're going to do after this is all glued, or while it's drying actually, we're going to go back into the software and we're going to create the vectors that we need to cut the acrylic clear face for it. That'll kind of go down here, and then two little red spots that will go on the front, and that'll give it that real nice retro feel. They'll have holes in it for the screws, which I have, and hopefully by a day's end tomorrow, we're going to have a working little candy dispenser.
Okay, let's have a look at the acrylic bits that we're going to need for this job. So let's go back to our 2D view for a second and look at our master plan here. Now, if we go ahead and have a look up here in our layers section, I've got a layer called acrylic. So if I go ahead and turn all of these off and just turn on the acrylic layer, you'll see the two pieces of acrylic that we're going to need. First of all, we need this piece right here, which is for the clear section. And then we have these two pieces at the bottom that we're going to do out of red. Now, if I go ahead and put back on the front here so we can see what's going on, is that this acrylic here will cover up everything along with the mouth of our dispenser. And we'll move around. It will cover up the actual rotating dispensing mechanism here. So this acrylic goes between the dispensing circle with the little moon cut of it and the bow tie handle. So it has to go in the middle. So we're going to need to put a dowel hole in there that's larger or the same size as the, larger than the dowel, so that it'll end up turning properly like it should. Okay, and then we're also going to need to add in holes into our acrylic so we can screw those pieces into the front of our glued up assembly. And if we look at our design layer here, or layer 1, you'll see there are those screw holes right there. So now let's just go ahead and turn all these back on again and go to our sheets drop down, and we're going to turn on the acrylic clear sheet and the red acrylic sheet and have a peek at those. So again, here is the clear acrylic sheet. Now you're going to want to make sure that you modify these holes here so they match the diameter of the screw that you're going to use. And what I would suggest you do is to make sure that those are bigger than the threads on your screw so you don't crack your acrylic by mistake. And again, the hole needs to be larger than the actual dowel that you have to use. So if we go ahead and have a look at our tool paths for this, we'll see we've got the screw holes here for those. So let's tile our views here for a sec. And we can go ahead and preview those. And for this particular tool path, for these ones, we're going to use the small straight edge cutter that I have, the 1/8 inch. And if we go looking at the actual tool path, it's a 3mm tool because that's just what it said on the package. So that's what I used. And if we have a look at our feeds and speeds for that, I didn't make many changes to that. I left them the way normally I would use it. So it's a little bit slower. Some cases what I would suggest you do is to slow down the actual spindle speed so you don't melt your plastic or melt your acrylic, depending on what kind of acrylic you're using. And then we have the cutout, which I actually used the larger 1/4 inch O flute for, cut all the way through the material. I added in some very, very thin tabs. With acrylic, you don't need to have really thick tabs. And really, when you go ahead and use double-sided tape, sometimes you don't even need to use tabs if you don't want to. But I do because I don't want things to fly around. They're really thin and they're really sharp. So when you go to remove these, be really, really careful. So let's close that down and let's preview that visible tool path. And there we have it. So it's going to be clear acrylic in the end, which is great. Again, this goes between the actual dispensing circle, the moon-shaped thing, and the bow tie handle, okay? And that'll kind of hold that in there from moving around. Let's have a look at our red acrylic. What I did with that is I chamfered the ends, or I filleted the ends here so they're nice and round, as you can see. And same with here, I filleted inside of those just to kind of give them a nice round look, and I made sure that everything fit together nicely. I did the same thing with this set of tool paths as you saw before. These ones were done with the 3mm straight bit, and this is done with the O flute bit. And again, you're going to need to change those hole size depending on the screws that you're going to be using. So we can just preview those tool paths. Also, my clear acrylic and my red acrylic is 2 different thicknesses, so I had to change those. That's why they're on 2 different, well, besides the fact they're 2 colors, they're on 2 different sheets and the thicknesses are different as well. Now, just another top tip is that if you change your material thickness, there are a few things that you're going to want to think about if you do that. So let's just go ahead and maximize our 2D view for a second. The things that are going to get affected are going to be mainly the location right here of where the underside will be inserted in the top of your lid, because this distance will change here, because your sandwich of material is going to be a different thickness. Then you're going to have to think about how wide this is and how where this actually lines up properly. So you might want to put a little thought into that. Essentially what I did is I just went and created a bunch of rectangles that were the thickness of my material and laid them across here. So I think there was 5 or 6, and I could locate where this belonged based on the thickness of those. And the other thing you might want to think about too is the location of this dispensing slot here at the bottom, or little dish. That may change as well. But pretty much that's all you really need to think about when it comes to changing up your material thicknesses, okay? Don't forget also to change up the size of your dowel holes if you use a different size dowel than I had on hand. Now, we got that all ready to go. Let's wait till tomorrow and we'll cut those on the CNC.
So it's day 2. We've got everything all glued up. This should all be ready to be taken apart and unclamped. So we'll give that a go in a minute. Before we do that, as I said yesterday, we created the files for the acrylic. So over here we've got the red acrylic that we're going to use for the bottom of the front to give it that real retro feel. We got the clear acrylic to go across the face of it. I'm going to use double-sided tape to hold it down, which is kind of standard for what we do here. And I've got those 2 straight cutters, so an O flute cutter and a straight 2 flute cutter. This is for the small holes, and this is for the big pass to kind of cut the parts out with. So yeah, so while this is cutting, then I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit more assembly on this. I need to screw the bottom on, need to maybe clean up a little bit, little sanding, clean up a little bit, and then get ready to apply the acrylic. Hey, I really like the way this turned out. It's a lot of fun. Of course, everybody likes candy. Again, you could make this into a pet dispenser, pet treat dispenser if you want to, maybe just by changing the knob into like a dog bone, using some small treats in there. I think that'd be really kind of fun. Obviously, you're going to want to put some kind of a food safe finish on this, which I didn't do, so I suspect that our candies are going to taste a little woody over time, but you know, I think it's pretty neat. It works really, really well. If I was going to do this again, I might modify slightly the hole that's in the the dispenser twisty thingy. Sometimes candies will get caught in there, but if you just go the other direction as soon as it gets caught, then everything is great. I had to upgrade it just slightly with a screw through the actual handle here to hold it into the dowel. That was a smart call, I think, on my part, because that way I could actually tighten it and loosen it if I need to. So I'm happy with that. Yeah, overall, that's great. So what you saw me do was design this up in our 3D view using some of our new 2D drawing tools, all the dimensioning and floating dialogues that we can add our data into, which makes things way faster and easier to use. Well, I hope you liked that. And if you do, give this a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, please do. And if you have a comment, leave it below and I'll get to it as soon as I can. If you make your own, make sure that you post it in our user forum so that we can take a look at it. I'd love to see what you do with this. Yeah, and that's it. Until next time, I'm gonna take the candy and run.